Good evening. Welcome to Intro to Computing. Tonight we're going to learn about something called a debugger. Debugger is a tool that comes with PyCharm. I honestly am not sure if there's a debugger that comes with idle, but if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to look into that. So a debugger allows you to look at a program while it's running. So normally what we've been doing is we run a program and then we try to figure out what went wrong, if anything, after the fact. Or perhaps we print out the value of various things, variables and other data as it's running. But that can be time consuming and sort of hard to figure out what's going on. A debugger kind of lets you look inside a running program. So in PyCharm, the way to do that is through this bug icon. So we've been pressing the green right arrow, but there's something to the right of that, and it's supposed to be a bug if you've never really looked at it, and that starts the debugger. So what we want to do is tell the debugger where to stop in the program. And we do that by clicking on the left side here in this kind of blank space between the line number and the file that we're debugging. And you see it puts a red dot there. So the red dot is called a breakpoint, and that's the point at which the debugger will stop and allow you to look at the program. So let's go ahead and try that. Make sure you have your configuration is correct for the program that you're running, okay, just like when we run it normally. And I'm going to click on this bug icon. And you can see that this line is highlighted. There's a blue kind of background bar on top of it. So that means that the breakpoint has stopped, or the program has stopped executing on that breakpoint. And down here on the bottom, where we normally would see the results of our program, we have a bunch of new icons down here. So let's go through those. The very left panel is the icons that control the debugger, well, some of them anyway. And I'll just go through them, I guess. So this green arrow and bar there called resume program, if you click on that, that will continue the program running until either it exits or it hits another breakpoint. Okay, so I'm gonna put another breakpoint and I'm gonna hit that button. And you can see that now the blue bar is on the next red dot. And if I hit it again, it's actually gonna, because it's a loop, it's actually gonna keep stopping on that part of the loop until we're done. So I will continue that and then we'll start over again. So we're running the program again. Okay. The red square actually stops the program from running. So if we click that, then it stops without actually finishing. Okay. I will restart it again. These two circles here allow you to look at the breakpoints that you have in your program, and you can unselect them, which means that they're no longer active. So the program will not stop on them if you do that. So for example, you can see if I uncheck that, there's an unfilled circle. That means that there's still a breakpoint there, but it's not going to stop. It's just telling you that that there's an inactive breakpoint. Okay, and this red circle with a line through it will also disable all the breakpoints, all of them at once. Okay, and that's useful if you decide that if you have a lot of breakpoints and you want to run your program as normal without stopping, then you can click that and it will just run as normal. Okay, so what's interesting about this is that we can see the value of these variables as we're running. Okay, so we're currently stopped on this first line, numbers equals the string, and at this point we haven't yet executed that line in the code. So there's actually we haven't done anything yet. To get it to do something, what we want to do is click on these arrows here. Okay, so there's several different ones. This bent arrow means step over, and that's we'll talk about that when we talk about functions. And this straight down arrow means step into, and again that has to do with functions. And this one here, this third one, not entirely sure what that one's for, to be honest. And this step out is also for functions. So we're going to use this bent arrow for now. Okay, and what that does is it executes the current line and goes to the next one. So when we did that, we'll notice in this right side here, there's this line that says numbers and then the value of it. Okay, so this will show you in the variables box on the right, it shows all of our currently defined variables and what the value is. Okay, so let's go to the next line. So now we see we have a couple of variables, numbers equals the string 83128, and then total equals a value of 0. All right, well that's so far not that useful because we can easily see what the value of those are because they don't change, or they haven't changed yet. So now we're stopped on the beginning of a loop, on the for line of a loop. So if we once again click this arrow here, we're going to go into the loop. Now we see that digit has been set to the string 8. So now we can kind of see what this program is doing. We see the for loop went in and it signed to the variable digit the first character in the string, which happens to be 8. So we can see that now digit is a string of 8. And once again, we'll click the arrow. Now you see that total has a value of 8, which is what we'd expect because we're converting that digit to an integer and adding it to total, right? And we can just click through here. And as you see, as we go through, the value of total increments, the value of digit each time peels off one of the characters in the number string and adds it to the current total. Now we're at the final line and we click the bent arrow and we're done. So that should have printed total, and if we click on, instead of the debugger, we click on this console tab, then that will tell you the final output. So this is what you would normally see if you just ran the program. Without a debugger, you'd see this, you'd see 22, but you wouldn't see all the things that had happened to get us to that point. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's go to file ops. This one is a bit longer, and we need to change our configuration. Once again, I've set a breakpoint. Well, instead of setting it there, let's set it in sort of the middle of the program. So I've set it in the middle of the while loop, and so the program is going to run normally until it gets to that breakpoint, if it gets to it. If the breakpoint is in a section of code that isn't going to be executed because of a condition, then it will never stop. But in this case, it should stop, and let's see what happens. Okay, so this program actually stopped because we're asking for an input. So that's not the debugger working. That's the program, this line that says input, enter a number. And what this little program does is it's actually one of the programs from the end of the file chapter. And the user enters a series of numbers, and then the program will add the numbers together and put all of that into a file. Okay, so I'm just going to add a number, let's say 4. I'll hit enter. And after we do that, the program continues. And now we're at the breakpoint. You can tell because of this blue line here, okay? So we're stopped at this point. Now we can look at our variables. We can see the number is equal to 4, which is what I just entered. That's what we would expect. Total is equal to 0, which is what we would expect because it's set to 0 on this line. We have not yet added anything to total, because we're stuck at this point. Now let's hit the bent arrow here, and we'll just step through the code. So now you see total equals 4, looking in the variable section. Now we're at the line where we're going to ask for another number, so it switches to the console. I'll just put, let's say 10. Now, after we did that, it goes to the next line in the program, the while line. And there's a condition here, while number not equal to -1. Okay, so since number, if we look in the debugger, is equal to 10, 10 is not equal to -1. Okay, so that means that the loop will continue. And we'll do this again. Now we see total is equal to 14. And this time I will enter, you can see this red arrow here, which indicates that there's something in the console that we need to be aware of. So I'm going to put -1 so that we exit this loop. And now go back to the debugger tab. Number is -1. -1 not equal to -1. Well, that's false. So that means we're going to exit. And we're going to write to the file and finally close it. And now the program is ended. And just to see what we actually did here, we created a file called total.txt, which is here. And the two numbers I had entered, and then it totals it up and prints it out in a file. Okay, so same thing as the last program, essentially, just a bit more complicated program. Now, the third one has functions in it. So again, set your configuration, and this is where, so I'm going to set the breakpoint at the main here. Okay, this also kind of can kind of show you how the flow of the program works. So you know where it starts and where it goes to as it executes. Okay, so I'm going to execute this, and it stops at main. Okay, now here's where there's a difference in these two step functions. So step over, what that does is if you're calling a function, it will step over that function. So the contents of the function will not be debugged. It will just skip over that all the stuff inside the function. So let's go ahead and do that, step over, and our program has ended. Okay, it prints a 1. I think this program just prints a random number or something. Okay, so we skipped over that. There's nothing after it, right? There's no lines after the main, so it exited. So let's try this again. Okay, we're at main. Now we're going to step into the main function. So there's a function called main right here. And if we choose the second, this blue down arrow, it will step into that function. And now you see that the blue bar is on the first line of the function main. Okay. And we can, again, step through this. So if there's really only a difference between these two step icons if we're talking about a function. If we're not talking about a function, it doesn't make any, really doesn't make any difference what you do. Okay, so since we're calling getRandom, which is another function, I'm going to step into it. Again, we could step over it. We're going to step into it, so it jumps up here, and it's just getting a random number. Okay, so I will, let's see if I step into this. Yeah, so this will actually, wasn't sure, but this will actually step into the code, the Python code that we haven't written, the function that comes with Python. Sometimes that can be useful just to sort of learn about how it's implemented, but we generally don't want to do that. Okay, so you can see there's this function rand_range. So this is actually the code that comes with Python. It's one of the built-in libraries. So If we wanted to, we could step through this and actually kind of see what it's doing. But we don't want to do that. We're not interested in that. So we want to use this step out function, which will immediately return from a function. Well, it executes the function, but it doesn't step through it with the debugger. Okay. So we do that. We're kind of back to where we started. So let's do the step over operation. And we see that rand number is equal to 1. Okay. Not sure what largest number is supposed to be here. We passed in 3. Okay. So rand number, we can see is set to 1, returns rand number. Okay, so let's hit that one. Select it again. So now we're past this line. So value is equal to whatever get random returned, which was 1. So now we see value is 1. And we'll just step through this. It's a loop that prints the values in the range of whatever was returned. Again, not a very interesting program, but just an example. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to step over these things so we don't step into any built-in functions we want to avoid, because we're not interested in those. We're only interested in the code that we've written. Okay. So it goes through the loop once. If we look at the console, we'll see that it's printed 0. And then we have a value of get random. So this time I'm going to step over that. Value is equal to 5. And it's going to print 5. And since we're at the end of this function, it goes back to where we called the function from, which was this line main with the left and right parentheses. And it should have printed 5, which it did. And now if we click step over one more time, then we've exited. Okay. And again, we can look at the console to see the output of the variables. Okay, so that's kind of the short introduction to debuggers. It's very useful when you really don't understand what a program is doing, when you're just kind of lost and just sort of throwing up your hands. Debugging it is a good thing to do. It can really help you understand what your program is doing, because maybe you think that some branch of an if statement is supposed to be executed and you can't figure out why it isn't, or why is my loop not working right. You can walk through it line by line and really figure out what your program is doing. And again, you can also do this other ways, but it's a good thing to learn how to use this. The PyCharm debugger is pretty good and pretty easy to use. So I recommend that you at least give it a try to see if see how it works, and see if you might want to use it the next time you run into problems. So with that, I will end the video, and I will talk to you soon. One thing I do want to tell you, I am going to be out of town the next couple of weeks, which should not affect you at all. But I may not be having live Zoom sessions. I may pre-record it, or I may probably just have one per week, because I'll be on sort of vacation, but I'll also be doing some work while I'm gone. But it shouldn't affect you. Feel free to contact me. As always, this will not affect me responding to you or helping you in any way. So just an FYI that I may not have the normal Zoom sessions. So with that, good evening, and I will talk to you later. Bye.